Hey, hi Shafiq. Shafiq, you seem to have a audio problem. I can't quite hear you. Okay, cool. Maybe while you sort that out, maybe let me just kick off the session for today. So thank you everyone for joining us for this session with Infomina today. It's actually a very interesting opportunity for everyone to be able to speak to Mr. Yee, and also later Mr. Tan, who are the Managing Director and the Regional Head of Sales, respectively, for Infomina. And I think, as everyone knows, it's actually been a very interesting company that has done very well since the IPO, and we're very lucky to have them today. So I think without any further ado, maybe let me just bring on screen Mr. Yee and SB. Hi, hello.
Hello, hi everyone. Hello,
Hi.
Sachi. Hello, Shafiq.
Hi, Mr.
Hello.
Yee.
Hi, Mr. Yee.
Hi. Okay, Shafiq, so now your audio is perfect.
All
And
right. Thank you.
I think SP has just dropped off, but maybe Mr. Yee, we just start first, right? So
Sure.
thank you very much for taking the time to join us today at 9 p.m. It's definitely a very good opportunity for all the retail investors in the market to be able to engage and understand a lot more about this business. Like we were talking off screen, even for myself, as I was preparing for the session, I think there were a lot of things that I myself wanted to clarify with you beforehand. So I think for the benefit of the audience, we are going to do this session slightly differently. Instead of going straight into the management presentation, we are actually going to start with a couple of questions for Mr. Yee to just help everyone understand the business and where Infomina fits in before we then go into the core of the business. So yeah, Mr. Yee, I think actually the first question I myself had as I was going through the material is, could you explain to us what do you mean by mainframe?
Sure. I think first thing first, I think thank you, Stockbitors, and also thank you, Sachi and Shafiq, for giving us this opportunity to speak with you guys, and also the communities, from the investment side. We did one or two, of this kind of explanations, and also to all the potential investors, even before our gong days, So we did it actually go through quite a fair bit. I think recently, I think after the gongs, that we have some attentions, for some of those investors, and people that we have met. We actually throw out a lot of questions, including like what do we do, and what is mainframes, especially some reports I think probably just came out and talk about that. So that also garnered some attentions, over that. Now, before the gongs, that we were kind of like that I myself very cautious and careful of what we should talk, because everything has to be inside the prospectus. Probably I think today's right after the gongs, that this will be a very good session, so that I hope that that Infomina can bring to you, in a more casual way. So by the first things, and this is the first time that we experience, that such ask very good questions, what is mainframe. Okay, let's start off with the mainframes. That to some people they will think that it is if you were the IT guy, if you were that guy, you think hey, I heard about mainframes. There was a many years separate, and is it still around? What is it doing? And what is Infomina doing with it? And Infomina started many years back, and I myself also started with the mainframe background. And even until today, mainframe itself has actually evolved, and it has become the most important computing platform, computing environments, for a lot of large enterprises. Well, for what you can name, that in fact, you can also see it, from our websites, from our perspectives, and our business, that you are dealing with us, that you know that we deal with a lot of direct customers, in the banking environment and also in the government environment. So all these are I would call it that they are the early adopter, of IT and an early adopter of computing environments. When the days that when any business, that will come about, that when they want to, rely on a new computing environments, that these are the people that will jump into that IT, where they will leverage, on mainframe. And it is a very super large, capacity, high performance, high security computing environments, that empowering all these customers, and providing them the most secure environments. So hence, that Infomina, we are so lucky, and myself, that from the day one, that we have been servicing these customers, from day one, for many years. And particularly, I think Infomina, in Malaysia, had done quite a fair bit of this kind of business, that. And the last 3 years, we also have done quite a bit of expansions, into other countries. So that is why that mainframe has become something that a computing environments that any mission critical environments, like the customers, that will always rely on. This is what we are starting off.
Okay, understand. Maybe my next follow-up question to that is, because as I was going through the material, I think the other thing that will be very important for viewers to understand is, because the term turnkey project and renewable segment keeps getting repeated in the material, in the presentation. If you could just help everyone understand what you mean by turnkey project and what you mean by renewable segment, that will also make it very easy to go through later.
Sure. As we bring it through, I think you probably see that, we classify our business segments, into two. One is the turnkey business. The other one is the renewal business. Now, turnkey business is typically, that we talk about the entire end-to-end projects that we actually cover, for our customers, where it will comprise of the entire comprehensive implementations, from the beginning. Typically, a turnkey projects, that not only that we are completing the entire projects, in a more comprehensive way, but that will also be not only completing in a very short time, in year two. But once you have installed and also have implemented, the entire projects, for our customers, then we will actually hand over to the customers, and that will come into the next part of the business, where we continue to service and support customer in maintenance mode. And that maintenance mode, that when we go into, usually it will give us a longer period of time. That a turnkey may take about a year or two, for us to implement that. We may have a bigger revenue streams, for us, because we'll be claiming that in a milestone manner. But once we move into a renewal business segment, that the customer will continue with that. Usually we will have it, in a smaller scale in terms of the revenue streams. But typically, the customer will continue to subscribe to us, will continue to renew with us, and to ask us to continue to support them and maintain for them, in a longer period. And longer period, by what I meant is usually is minimum of 1 or 2 years, or even up to 7 years. And some of our customers, that in fact, I think one of the longest customers that we have, in the active contracts, we have it up to 7 years actually.
Okay. So the turnkey is basically when you are first developing the solution for the client, and that's where, if I understand correctly, also, Mr. Yee, the way the business works is that you are not a manufacturer of the mainframes, right? So you have technology partners, and you get the mainframes from them, and you are basically responsible for figuring out what is the best way to service or resolve the client's needs. So you get it from the partner and you put the solution together, presumably multiple parts coming together. And
Absolutely.
you then, okay.
Then we will carry on, with the maintenance jobs, But we need to also add on to that, is that both turnkey and as well as the renewal business are actually interdependent. That the moment that we finish one big project, and one turnkey project, we will move into a maintenance. But that doesn't mean that, from the maintenance job side, because we will continue to look for new opportunity we will continue to look for new add-ons. And that is where that when a new opportunity arises, it's like a cross-sell and upsell. That it will give us another possible project, a turnkey project that will derive outside of the entire maintenance project. That is why that for having maintenance is like a good cushion. You have a very good recurring business over the years. But along over the years that you are taking care of the customers, at the same time we are also have developed ourselves into a trusted advisor for the customer, where we understand the environment from day one. So this is where that we can continue to get new add-on projects on top of that. Then you will spin off to another turnkey projects by itself. Then that turnkey projects eventually, so once we deliver, there will be continuous maintenance and coming to that. So this is how we build our revenue streams for the past many years.
Okay, understand. So just to double click into that, right? When you say upgrade or upsell, cross sell, so what you actually mean here is presumably the client's business needs have expanded and they either need more capacity, or maybe some of the equipment is outdated and needs yeah, they just need to buy new and better technology for today's needs. Is that
Correct.
the correct way to
Correct.
think about it?
Yes, that's correct. In fact, we have a couple of slides to actually give a better illustrations of where Infomina food chain is and how we place their parts. Uh, Perhaps maybe Shachi, you can help me to put up the slides now.
Sure, let me just do
Slides
that.
of that. Just a little bit of. Let me see. If I may skip just a little bit, so that we can. I think we can start off, from here. So now that this is where I think my colleague here, SP. He is our regional sales directors. Okay, so both of us are the ones that know that responsible for the entire sales and marketing, for Infomina, and this will be some good slides, that we can actually help you to understand better, of what Infomina do, and for sure, like what Saji, I think you mentioned right now, that we do not manufacture the hardware itself, okay, but we do software developments, around the mainframe and also outside the mainframe as well. In the same time, we also do consulting and implementation services of whatever that is required. And that as IT consulting and implementation services is also the turnkey projects that we are talking about as well. But at the same time, after that, we will go down into operations and maintenance and support services. This is where the renewal business coming in as well. Now, as we go into the turnkey or even the renewals, there will be times for us to act as a distributor or even a reseller, or retailers, for our customers. Now, do note that most of our customers are direct customers. We do not much actually to go through any agents in between. So all the customers that we go into, whether it's in Malaysia, Singapore, Hong Kong, Thailand, so those countries that you most people already know, that we do not actually go through any agents. We usually sell direct to the customer, having the active contracts with this customer, and these customers are all from the large enterprises, the banks themselves directly, the government themselves directly. So we becomes the tier one partner and tier one provider to this customer. But in the same time, we also buy direct from our supplier, from our principal, some of them are from US, some of them are from Japan or Australia or Europe. So we typically will take on the technology itself directly without going through anyone as much as possible, and sell direct to our customers. And that usually goes through the two pillars of this. Now, the next slide that I want to show, which I'm going to ask my regional sales directors to help, because this is where all of us, both of us, especially SPs, is helping, to this is where we eat, this is where we drink, this is where we sleep, and how Infomina function ourselves, completely on this part. SP.
Hey, thanks, Chee Meng, and hi, I'm SP. Okay, I'm just going to do quick introductions and make it very probably simple to understand where is our business and what is our business model, and how does almost every citizen consumer in the market interact with our system or touches our systems day in, day out in their life. So if you really look at the diagram, on the right-hand side, you will see some orange color man that is standing there. You can see that there are two key areas. One is you will see some visa, some masters, and some government agency. So I presume that everybody will do some online shopping and pay by credit card, and you will probably drive a car. You need to have a driving license. You have a car. You need to have a road tax. Or one of these days that you felt like going out to Singapore for holiday, you need to pass our immigrations. So if you really have done any one of these transactions, then I can be very sure to share with you here that you somehow have interact or touches one of our systems that we have maintained and we have built together with our customers. So if you really look at on the left-hand side where you have a blue color Infomina, this is what we do at the back end for the consumer or the public in Malaysia today, or even in the region. So we maintain the big systems for the government agency. Like for example, today, if you want to renew a road tax, you go to a post office, then you probably pay them some money, and sometimes you want to pay through credit card. Then you go through a bank. It could be a Visa, it could be a Master. All these transactions eventually will go into the respective, whether it's a bank or a government agency, to actually process it before it generate the either road tax or e-commerce that you buy some things online. Our responsibility or our job is to really work with our customer to make sure that all these systems is up and available 7 by 24. And I'm very sure this is the expectation of the consumer in the market today. And the even more important things that we do is we must ensure that the transaction integrity is there. When you swipe a credit card, if it is $10, it must be a $10 debit to your account, not a 11, not 12, or it don't debit twice. If you go to an ATM machine, if you withdraw the money, and suddenly there is a blackout, you expect that if the money didn't come out, it should not be debited from your account. So all this data processing, data integrity, data security, availability, uptime of the system to service you day in, day out, as whether you are using our road transport department, you are using our immigration department, you are using maybe some of the top banks in Malaysia, like the Tiger Bank or the Octopus Bank, and so on. They to certain extent are using part of our services and systems that we actually built together with them to actually process your data to ensure all this data security that we can deliver to you, and you have peace of mind when you do all these transactions. So Infomina sits at the back end of the food chain to make sure that all these things is available. So perhaps this is the part that, when you talk about the big system of mainframe and so on, then people was like, I heard it in the comic, I heard it in a Marvel movies. They talk about mainframe and whether these things exist or not. In reality, it is, and it is really day in, day out, very close to you, processing your data and servicing you in a lot of different ways. So I hope that this will give a simple, clear picture of where do we do our business and how we work with our customers, not just in Malaysia, also in the entire region, like Thailand, Philippines, Indonesia, and Hong Kong, and so on. Chee Meng,
That's
probably
why
back
that
to
you,
you.
you probably don't see us much, outside, because we are not there, to sell you the laptops or iPads or beautiful handphones, So we are probably the ones, that well, everyone's, is accessing, into their daily services, on the banking side or government services, at their own time, at their own ease, in their own place, But they are touching back, to the back end. That this is where SB and I, working in behind, behind the curtains, working together with the customers, 24/7, and supporting them. And in fact, that the COVID actually has put up a lot more pressures, and demand for the past 3 years, and that actually is that I think everyone knows that digital adoptions is the way to go. So it's just a matter of like how much and how fast that we are going. COVID just give it a little bit of jokes, that hey, everyone stay at home, do your things, online, and do whatever that you have to do. So even investments, like this, everybody go crazy on the investment as well. So at the back end, that I think SP and I, spend lots of times, dealing with all the customers. SP in fact just came back from Thailand, talking to some of the customers and working on some good contracts. So that is something that we have been working on for the past 3 years. That is why that if you read our prospectus, last 3 years has been crazy years for Infomina. Looking at the numbers that we grow from 40 million into 60 million, 80 million, 100 millions, and then jump into 200 millions, and we are very positive, that this is our Q1 that we just finished, coming into the Q2, and we are looking very positive of even another good year to come. And let's not take that more info that we're gonna share that a bit more in the next couple of more slides. So that is what I think SP has just shared with you. Perhaps maybe Sachi, you want me to take through a little bit on the slides, then we can bring it over, and then we can start off with Q&A with the community.
Sure, let's do that. Yes.
So okay, SP, feel free to jump in. Okay, I'm going to go into let's talk a little bit on Infomina and where we are. As of today, in December, we have 133 employees. All right, these 133 employees are all, majority of us are all sitting in Malaysia as a HQ. Okay, in our 133 employees here, we have got about more than 100 of us are all technical. And we have technical specialists, ranging from software developer to support engineers to help desk personnel, and also one good pool of business domain expertise. When I say the business domain expertise, it means is that we have this group of business analysts who know very well of the business segments. But remember that we said that mainframe processing data and everything, for our customers, in the banks environment, we have these groups of analysts that who know the customer's environment, who knows the business very well. Like mentioned just now, SP mentioned just now, is that hey, we have got immigration departments, we have got JPJs, we have got JPNs, all these customer and LHDMs. So because we have also the group of analysts that who understand the specific industries and help our customers to unlock the data and unlock the potential. Now, apart from the 122, I think 130 over employee, we have presence in 8 different markets. That is, we will have Malaysia being the HQ, we have Singapore, we have Thailand, we have Philippines, Indonesia, China, Hong Kong, and Taiwan. And as of today, until today, we have completed 370 over million ringgit worth of projects, and we still got a very good order book, back in our pockets, of more than 400 million. And these 400 millions of order books, I think we can actually talk a little bit more so how we can actually replenish it. In fact, we are seeing a good positive move of how we can do it in the next very near couple of months. In the same time, that our tender books are growing very strong. SP, I think way to go, that we see that it's becoming something that we can really turn that good tender books, into a very good order books, in a very short time frames. We are servicing more than 60 active customers. In fact, I think probably a couple more is going to come up, and it's going to be a good years to come. The last 3 years we have been doing 45-35%, respectively, for our revenues and PAT on the annual compounded rates. This of course is going to be an added pressure. The two of us, continue to make sure that you continue to give us investors the good returns out of it. Now, Infomina is a regional leading technology service provider, so that where we focus on. I think I want you to look at where we are today. There are 8 different markets that we are looking at. We have 5 legal entity, or I will call it, we have 5 companies that we set up 100% owned by Infomina. listed co, in Malaysia, namely, we have Hong Kong, we have Philippines, Thailand, Malaysia, Singapore, and Indonesia. As of today, for the past 3 years now, that as of today, that we have actually developed, entire sales and marketing activities, mainly not just Malaysia, but also a lot, in Thailand and Philippines, and plus a bit of, from Singapore. Now, we have not really moved our gear into a high gears, into the northern regions, such as Hong Kong, Taiwan, and China. We are just started, our engines. Same goes to Indonesia. Now, these are the two territories, that Infomina will be focusing, in the next 1 year. In fact, that I think one of our sales managers, that's under SP, has actually done some good jobs, that we're probably seeing, some good news, from Indonesia as well, in the very near months to come. And like I mentioned this stuff in the early times, that I mentioned that we have direct contract with this customer. Most of them are coming from public sector and private sectors, and I'll show you a bit more on that. So let me share a bit. I think we have gone through these business activities and also where we are, and Sajid asked a very good questions about what we do, in terms of our turnkey projects. These are turnkey projects, and also we have the customized renewal business that we are looking at. Now, these are some of those awards and accolades that we have gotten for the past couple of years. Okay, a couple of investment highlights. That because of our positions, being a mainframe specialist as well as being a mainframe tier 1 partner for some of the well-known suppliers in the world, that we have become the only one so far, in Asia, except Japan and Australia, also. So all those 8 countries that we are representing, that we have becoming the only ones that is appointed, and running and servicing all these customers directly, and that gives us a very good in a very good position, to help our customers to tailor-make their environments, and help their current install base, and also the technologies, to look into new future. Just to share with you, a little bit of info, that Sachi just mentioned to me, and asked me about, that how is mainframe and cloud? Is cloud is going to replace mainframe? Is mainframe is going to be like not obsolete because of the clouds initiative? Everybody talk about clouds. Now we need to understand is that mainframe itself, being the supercomputing, power infrastructure, computing environments, for all the banks and government agency, and in fact, this is not just in Malaysia or in Asia or Southeast Asia. This is worldwide. You talk about Visa, you talk about Master, you talk about Max. They're all running on mainframe, right? But and I have this one opportunity, in fact, to talk to one of the CEOs, top banks, in Malaysia, that we were talking about how can we actually add on some of those additional services, on top of their mainframe environments, by bringing some of the extension services outside of mainframe and bring it, a little bit of cloud elements, into it. So then we were having, some idea of like, hey, can we do some payment processing, outside, so that we can bring it, to the clouds and have a different way of running it, And a lot of, even including bank themselves, have actually working into a lot of transformations initiative, transformation initiative that where it involves of how they're going to find new business, new revenue, a new way of doing things, for the bank. No longer like you look into the banks, in a very conventional ways, where the banks are constantly looking into how can they tap into, any other business, whether it's like, for example, you want to open up a cafe, you want to go into logistics, you want to go into card payments and everything, and even grabs or whatever, So the banks are constantly looking into new avenue, new revenues. This is where that they come to us as a mainframe and also data, and also we know their domain, we know their environment, we know their business. This way we started to have a lot of transformation idea, new idea of how can we unlock into it, and that then we derive into a certain specific, cloud services, that the banks are very interested in, that we can potentially, tap into new set of customer segments for the banks, and this is where we are able to help our customers to continue to offer much more tailor-made technology applications. And I mentioned just now, that we have a lot of direct customers. They are all reputed customers, that some of these have given us the consent, to disclose their names. For example, like the banks Nationals, the Siam Commercial Bank, Bangkok Banks, and a couple of banks, in Philippines. And all of them, continue to have good years of length of relationships, with Infomina. I'm just also know that we have direct relationships, with some of the major international technology providers. These are the partners that we have been working with, closely, and being a tier one, being a direct partner, with this, we often buy direct and also deal direct, with our partners directly, so that we can offer the best of these technologies, to our customers. Okay. And of course, the whole thing, is also about me and SP, we have got 130 over employee. In fact, is that through the IPO process that we have raised, that we are expanding our team. We are expanding our teams, into adding more sales and technical staff, not just in Malaysia. We want to have a good full-fledged of teams, in each of these countries, in Philippines, in Thailand, in Indonesia, Singapore, and Hong Kong. We want to have a good couple of sales and technical guys, over at each of these representative offices that we have, that we are present as, and supporting out from Malaysia. Let me go through some of the business. Okay, the proceeds that we are raising from the IPO, that will give us the very good importance working, not just the working cap, but also some funding to help us, of course, to continue to help us to strengthen our R&D capabilities. And one of them will be the YD Space, which is one of the apps that we have just launched it called under the Project W Space not long ago. It is a new concept of how we can actually promote a better collaborations and combinations, in a much more secure virtual environment where we allow all of our users, to initiate and manage all their daily tasks and activity. This will be a very new and interesting ways, how we can promote, in any of the communications and collaborative tabs. Okay, and YD Space is one of the babies that I'm actually personally carrying in, and while we have the second, one of the also important center excellence initiative, in our R&D streams, which I think SP is the one that is actually personally handling this one, where we work with our partner, people like Broadcom, people like Hitachi, in the collaborations of bringing up this center of excellence into the world-class training and development economy. In fact, we are also in the middle of concluding, some of the very important initiatives in the partnerships, where we will be providing the COE services as one of the key initiatives, and becoming the true R&D and as well as a COE, not just for Asia. Okay, it will be also be available, worldwide, in the mainframe arena. Now, we also personally bought, I think, one ourselves, that a Z13, mainframe supercomputing servers, that hosted back in Malaysia. SP can actually share a lot more, of this about COE. SP, you want to share a bit, about this also?
Sure. I think if you really look at what I've mentioned earlier, a lot of our business really depends on people, skill, knowledge, and the more important thing is the people that we built in the organization to support our customers. I think take an example that if you are a consumer and you expect 7x24 access to the systems, use your credit card, we need to have same amount of people with the same skill or the equivalent skill to be able to support the system to make sure the availability of systems are there. Hence, this COE initiative that we have is very important for us to build our internal talent for the next generation. So it's not just what we have today, it's also more important for the next many years to come, how we can continue and build and grow this company, organization, revenue, and service our customers. So if you really look at it, the Center of Excellence is really so-called our talent manufacturing or casting engine that build our next generation of talent in the organizations. And the more important thing is we actually go into a lot of university to recruit the really new, fresh, young IT graduate or similar graduate. We bring in the new idea, like for example, some of the customers like today, you talk about computing, you will probably talk about the back end for all the mission critical data processing and so on. But you are not getting away with a lot of front end like e-commerce, like things that is in the cloud. So how are we going to integrate all this front and back? We need the new talent, we need the new idea that is coming out from the university, that they are exposed to all these new things, and we train them, and so that we will get the best of the both sides, the new computing and also all the mission critical computing at the back end, so that we will continue to grow with our customers. We'll continue to transform our customer to adapt to today's digital economy. We'll continue to actually be able to support all the new technology that the customer wanted to actually do their business. So I think that the COE is one of the key initiatives for our talent pool to make sure the continuity of the business that we have today. Like, Jimmy, back to you.
Thanks. Yeah, just to add on to what SB mentioned also is that apart from adding on, as a training and development academies, that we'll be servicing not just all the customers in Asia, but we are looking into and also we are actually in the middle of completing that part of the puzzles, with our suppliers, that to provide this service to worldwide all mainframe customers, all the mainframe install base, in the world, will be tapping into it, and that gives us a very good clear, space, that we know that apart from that, we are also providing. Maybe just all the questions about mainframe and clouds, and this COE, it is now also becoming a private cloud, to our customers, in the whole world, where they can actually tap into our own mainframe, our own processing power, our own computing environment, supercomputer environments, that we are, in fact, we already have a couple of customers in COE itself, which is hosted in one of the data center in Malaysia, and this is running very well, and taking up some of the very key and important business functions for our customers, and some of these services, will include like taking up the recovery services, for example, that being a backup as well as the real live center, that in the event of if the customers are not having some potential faults or disasters, that they can actually fail over to our computing environments, to continue their business, without a glitch, to their end user. But at the same time, also we are also providing the additional performance centers, for some of our customers to offload their mainframe in their own backends, to our mainframe sites, and that had become a private cloud for some of these customers. And this is already we have a couple of customers that has already also signed up, in the new tailor-made, applications and also tailor-made projects, for this. Now, in order for us to continue to capture and also to realize, our 400 million ringgit of order books, that we need to expand. We need to really expand, our business in the regions. That will include, I mentioned just now, on adding up, more sales and technical people, over. We did one of the very important, I wouldn't say that a challenge, but also something that make it very unique, in Asia, is that Asia has a very different culture and languages. That is why it's that having the local employee. Right now we have a couple of employees, in Thailand and Philippines. We are looking to continue to hire more local sales technicals, in these countries, all the way to Thailand, Hong Kong, Taiwan and China. We are also looking into the expansions, into Indonesia. One of the good points I think probably we want to touch on is also on the mainframes, how mainframe works, and how our business tap onto the mainframe, itself is that typically our revenue generates, out from all the software and hardware and services that we sell into their mainframe environment. And the bigger the mainframe that they have, the bigger opportunity for us in Infomina. So even though for the same set of hardware or software, typically our licensing, our services are depending on the processing power that the customer have. So, and most of these processing powers that the customer have also depends on that customers themselves know that what kind of end user, the number of end user, the number of capacity that they are serving in. So let's say that if you talk to probably a banks, a smaller tier banks, in Malaysia, or Thailand or what, as compared to those other banks who is serving a larger populations, for example, in China or Indonesia, those banks or those government agencies will tends to have a bigger processing center, a bigger mainframe. And typically these bigger mainframes that we are talking about, will actually give us even bigger revenues that we are looking at as well. Now in Malaysia, I think this is just some of the industry slides that we're picking up for our independent market researcher. Last year, I think we did about 150 million loans for Malaysia. But for the entire Malaysia enterprise IT spending, we still have a big 5.1 B to be tapped on. We believe that the growth and the space that we can actually go into is still a lot bigger than what we can actually go on. And also for Southeast Asia without China, without the North Asia, that Malaysia and we ourselves have done about close to 200 million ringgit in the financial year of 2022. But the whole Southeast Asia enterprise, I think, is actually more than 30 billion. That actually gives us, that a majority of this are actually coming from the mainframe and mainframe related business. This is where that we believe that Infomina still have quite a big rooms, that we can actually tap into. Of course, that is adding more pressure to both SP and myself. We know that this will be a place, at very green and blue oceans that we can actually go in and call to grow the company. Just because that because we do really sell all those very fanciful IT gadgets, that showing to all the customers, and we know that we have a lot of works that we have to work on to catch up, to really polishing, our brands, or who is Infomina and telling the world, and especially not just our customer, but now that being a listed core entity, we are responsible to also to guide and also to educate, our shareholders, investors, that are our brands, and what we do, So that is why that through the process also, that we'll be doing a lot of workshops, not just with the customer and partners, potentially we also hope, to go through some of those social media, exhibitions or forums, to do much more brand communications initiative, for the industry and in the industry itself. And a couple of financial overview. I think last month we just announced our Q1 results. And expect us to know that we have done 41.9 million ringgit for Q1. Take note that our financial year close and end in May. 1st June is usually our beginning of the year. So today we just completed November, so we have also completed our 2nd quarter and it's now into the audit cycle. And from our 1st quarters that we have announced for the quarter ends of the 1st of August, out of the 41.9 million ringgit, the majority of it is coming from the renewal business. Now you will continue to see the renewal business itself, will continue to be as steady and also as balanced, and it will continue to grow from that angle. And that's because of most of our renewal business are on a time basis, where it will actually go through and amortize, by the quarter. And most of renewal business are very quotient based. When I say quotient based, means is that they are very stable. That if we are getting about 30, typically, this is what we should be expecting to grow, and in that manner. But as for turnkey, it's kind of like a different from the renewal. Typically, turnkey will follow the implementation milestones, where we will build, and accordingly, and also we will recognize the revenue accordingly as well. So hence, sometimes you will see that the turnkey projects, that when you come to a certain large milestones, achievements that we have completed, and that fall into a specific quarter, then you will see that a jumps, in terms of that revenue. But as and when that we finish, one particular project, that project will immediately, will help us to add on to our renewal. And the stickiness and also the win rates, for the renewal is always a lot higher. Typically, we always look at 90% and above, of the continuing successions, of winning the projects, And turnkey projects, typically we also have a very good chances because of the unique positions of where we are, as a mainframe players, in the regions, and the only ones in the region. And we typically have also good chance, in terms of 1 to 3 winning ratios, for all the turnkey projects. Infomina has good financial positions, as far as we have almost close to none, 0.1 times of the gearing ratios. As of today, we have got about 76.2 million. Actually, as of 31st August, I corrected myself, for our cash and cash equivalent balances. So we do not have much of the facility apart from the the bank borrowings that you can see, the 2.9 million ringgit here. Typically, those are just mostly our office rentals, which is not much of the facilities that we have actually. Okay, to put the Q1 and into a more comparative charts, that our profit after tax margins, is quite running, in a healthy range, or what we expect as, approximately 10 to 12%. One thing is not that would like to have the audience here to remember is that being an IT company, remember I mentioned to some is that the turnkey projects is based on the deliveries of the milestone. The recurring itself will give us like the kind of very stable incomes over the next couple of years. But because of the turnkeys, that it may introduce based on the time frame of when we're going to deliver that. Hence, in typical ways, for a company is that we do not actually have the kind of like a manufacturer way of seasonal comparison, where we don't actually compare like our first quarter over to the last quarters for the previous years, but because sometimes depending on the turnkey project is of where we are, that may change. It could be higher and a lot higher. It could also be lower, depending on the turnkeys that is coming in for that particular quarter. And we have got some numbers, on the again, charting in, the first quarter of the numbers, into the GP as well as the pre-tax profits. As you can see, that the average of the percentage, for both GP as well as the pre-tax profits are running, in a very equivalent and also similar range, in the margin itself. Now, same thing also, I think we divide that, of our GP margins, into the business segments, both on the turnkey as well as a renewal business, taking the one quarter as compared to the whole year, that we are also looking into a much more equivalence turnkey and revenue percentage. Now, do take note that when it comes to a turnkey percentage, that as compared to a renewal percentage, when it comes to a GP, of course, turnkey will involve a lot more upfront costs, that you probably have to pay for a lot of hardware, the software and the services, the people costs, and obviously, and also the competitions costs, that we have to discount, in order to win the projects. Hence, the turnkey project give a much lesser gross profits, as compared to the renewal business, where the renewal business, that once we are into the customers, and the customer continue to trust us, being their partner and being the advisors, in the IT environment, we will tend to have a better stickiness with these customers. That's why that our winning rates are much higher when it comes to renewal business, and it will also give us a better positions in better profits in this way. But when both add together, that it gives us a very balanced GPs in the long run. Okay, some of the revenue breakdowns, for us, the last couple of years, we are pretty much, depends on the government agencies, on one particular, But over the years, Infomina has taken the approach of balancing, both private sector and public sectors. We want to have a better spreads, when it comes to revenue breakdowns, into the industry. So it is our plan and also our continuing efforts to make sure that our revenue will continue to be much more balanced from both sectors, private and public sectors, in the long run. Okay, and the charts that you are seeing here, I'm seeing a bit of glitch, from the chart itself, but the chart that you are seeing here basically to tell you is that since the days that we have actually expanded, not just for Malaysia, where entirely Malaysia runs the entire revenues, back in financial year of 2019. The days that we have started to go into the regionals, we have started to get more revenues for other countries. As you can see, the last 1 year, Malaysia still stand and take majority of the entire revenue income for the company. We see a good growth in Thailand, Philippines, and also other regions. And we will continue. We believe that with the right approach, and also the right things that we are doing today, very soon, that Malaysia will continue to grow definitely, and we will also want to make sure that the rest of the countries outside Malaysia will also give more to us, so that whatever the numbers that you are seeing in FY 2022, we want to grow that, and we are expecting a lot more also from outside Malaysia as well. Now, this is one of the slides that I think will be the last slides that I think we want to go through it. We still have a very good outstanding of the order books. As of September 30th, 440 million ringgit of the total order books. We have, of course, utilized and also recognized some of it. In fact, we are also expecting quite a good numbers, winnable rates, from a tender books, which is coming from a 370 million ringgit, that soon it will be replenished, in the order books, in a very, very short time to come. And you can see that if we break down the entire order books, both on the turnkey and renewals, that the renewal itself, it seems like it is actually reducing, over the years. This is because I think some of the renewal contracts that we have are actually come to a time of renewing, where we were typically spending our effort also to continue to talk to the customer while working with them and renewing all the business, and continue to replenish our order book. We will be also adding on more and more turnkey projects, in the short times to come. And hence, that the order books that you are seeing here, it will continue to grow, and the tender books that you are seeing here, it will also to continue to replenish over the next couple of months. So that basically concludes that Infomina is actually in a very good position, where we know that there's a lot of things that we can actually do. The expansions of the companies from Malaysia and beyond outside of Malaysia has actually given us a very good positive and confident outcome. Past 3 years, we have grown from the tremendous annual compounded rates, and we are very confident that in the next 1 or 2 more years, that we will be continue into the kind of expansion as well as growth, and that basically is concluding of our presentations. So perhaps from here we can also try to take up some of the questions coming from the community here.
Sure. Thank you. So yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Yee and SP. I think it was actually a very comprehensive presentation, and I'm actually very, very glad that we covered some of those important points before we went into the presentation, because I think otherwise it made it very difficult for the users to follow. And actually, I actually have two questions as you were presenting. The first question is, I've always thought of mainframes or the mainframe business as just being the business of the hardware, right? But you mentioned software a couple of times. Maybe if you could just help educate me a little bit, how or why is there like the software element when we're talking about physical computers, right? Basically.
Right. For example, even the software like the operating systems, the database, as basic as it is, that is sitting, in the mainframe computer itself. So those licenses in the mainframe world, there is no like perpetual way. I think the whole IT world is actually moving into a subscriptions model where you lease the software, you lease the hardware. Same thing also go to the mainframe environments, that the customer will typically subscribe the license, the hardware, and also the software. And when it comes to hardware, it is also a subscriptions model where the customer will subscribe it as a maintenance. So if they pay for that maintenance contract or maintenance license for the hardware, okay, they will continue to enjoy the warranty and also the parts maintenance. But for the software, like I mentioned just now, the operating system, database, and also a lot of other add-on software, for example, like as we mentioned just now, payment software, scheduling software, security software. So all these are also in a model of subscription as well. So it is just like for example, you buy a Microsoft 365, you have to pay for it on a yearly basis. You can also choose to buy a multi-year plan. The longer years that you buy, the cheaper that you get on a per year basis. You pay upfront, or you pay on a yearly basis. Same goes to the mainframe environments, that the customer will have to continue, to not only to subscribe to that, that we will continue to work with them on a renewal contracts, on a longer term. Okay, but most of the time we do not want to go too long, right? We just want to go in the very nice 3 years, with the customer, and because of, remember I mentioned just now is the subscription models, for the software, it also depends on the processing power of the mainframe. So the same software that it sits on this, that for the processing power, and the customer tends to increase and upgrade their server, upgrade their mainframe, where our turnkey projects will come in, where we will help them to upgrade the mainframe itself. We will also help them to upgrade, whatever the applications, along with that, that if they have to continue with some deployment of new API on the mainframe itself, this is where we will add on our services, to the turnkey. And because of the processing power is going up, the software will actually charge accordingly. So the bigger the server that you are, the license, will be calculated differently. So hence, to us, the revenue on the renewal in the nice 3 years, for example, will actually give a better plans, for not us, but for the customer to plan for themselves. Okay, to plan for themselves is that I will be upgrading my servers, but typically the customer will not upgrade in a very small focus. I won't be upgrading today. I got a processing power of 100. I won't be upgrading to 130. I will be going into 200s, and this is where that we will help our customer to look into the capacity planning, or where they are going for the next 3 years. Then we will relook into the entire renewal contracts, with the customer, what kind of things that we can add on for them, what kind of prices, new prices that we can continue to offer them, in the long run. So hence, that also gives us a very good repeating business in the long run. That's why that our order book will continue to grow up. The last 3 years, we are COVID is just helping and not really helping. That helping as in the ways that it tell the customer is that let's not slow down. So because the capacity upgrade is important, everybody is getting online. So now the capacity juice, is running out of time. So the last 3 years we've been very busy, in upgrading. But it's not really helping us because we cannot go and do more turnkey projects for our customer because we are not there. Physically we're not there, and we also don't have enough hands, on the ground. That is why I think the last 1 year, at least, when we can travel, finally we meet our customer. Finally, we also have good project coming in, that this is why we feel much more relief, that we know that the customer also said that no matter what, come and see me, work on that. So that's why the turnkey and the renewal business will continue to grow very soon.
Okay, thank you very much. I just looked through the list of questions, and actually, I'm mindful we actually have about almost 30 questions today from the floor. And I think maybe we need to go through them in a very quick fire manner. Otherwise, we're not going to get through them, and my audience is not going to be very happy. So maybe, Shafiq, maybe I pass it to you, Shafiq, to start maybe
Yeah,
going through a couple of the questions.
Yep. But before we go with the question from the comment segment, right? I do have like very basic question, so that I need to understand about how the industry works, right? So because what I understand from the mainframe is basically is very needed to process a lot of data, right? In data processing. So I'm not sure, is there, and this is my question for you, lah, right? Is there any substitute for mainframe, right? And if that, why mainframe is much more competitive compared to the others, right? Because I want to understand the central or the positioning of your products.
I
So,
think
sorry, maybe
for maybe
if I just add in, because actually there were a couple of questions from the audience on cloud, right? So I guess the competitor will be cloud. And I guess we can also tackle some of these cloud related questions as well in the same answer.
Okay, good. I think we need to look at it. I think cloud is not a competitor to mainframe. In fact, cloud is just an add-on to what mainframe is doing. Those customers that we are working on, all the big banks, all the governments, they are not going to put their key data on the cloud. That's one. Second is that because of the sovereigns data protections and also the privacies, no governments or no banks will actually put their data outside. It's also governed by the central banks of almost all the countries in the world. But one thing for sure is that all this key data also the banks themselves or the government themselves will continue to have it in-house. Second point is that most of these customers that we have, they are not new company. They have been there. They are the early adopter of IT. They are the early adopter of all the computing environments using mainframe. So a lot of investment has been put in, to continue to evolve and continue to run, on the mainframe itself. And I think I met one of the top CEOs, that I mentioned to you, for banks. And most of the banks or even governments are not looking into changing or replacing mainframe or even looking to changing the entire platform to something else or move most of the processing into cloud. That is not something that they are looking at. Most of the banks will continue to say that whatever I have on the mainframe, I just want to make sure that it is so in the better processing environment. I'll continue to give the kind of capacity to support it, because it's still in a very highly secure computing environment. But what they're looking more is into how can I add on more revenue so that they can actually build in more computing. So we are also looking into a lot of ideas, for example, like the API, the blockchains, even the 5G adoptions of how to engage into more applications into it. So most of the customers that we're talking to are not looking into spending the kind of money to change something is working so well, but they're looking into spending their IT budgets, into how to enable what is around it so that they can get more revenue from that. Focus is more on getting more revenue. Focus is not on saving your 10%, 20% of changing to another platform. That doesn't make sense, in the business environment. And you know that banks, in a very competitive way, okay, when bank A do this, and the bank B will make sure that I will do it earlier than you, and the bank C will come to say that I am already there. So it is more important, for that trends or for everyone's, of our customers to look into what new things I can do. And when I want to do my new thing, I want to make sure that my backend, my mainframe, my data at the back are able to support on day one. So the just in time, to the market is the most crucial part, for any of our customers.
All right. So I think there's a question from the floor that is related to the mainframe. So mainframe hardware sales has declined in a few years. So, what's your take for the future and legacy of the mainframe hardware? Yeah, this is question from Randy. Yeah.
All right, good, thanks. We actually have not seen the mainframe hardware sales declines. In fact, that there's reports coming from one of the major players for mainframe is IBM themselves. They have the largest market shares in the whole world. In fact, they're the key players for mainframe. If you can get hold of a report, it's actually a publicly available report from IBM. They talk about the mainframe and how the mainframe continue to evolve. In fact, today's mainframe new latest version is coming to the 16th iteration. We call it the Z16. And they continue to see the customers to grow and capacity. And in fact, now that mainframe is now into a more consumption basis, where we are also helping our customers, to look into a consumption basis that where you can get the whole big box, itself, together on the hardware as well as the software, but at the same time allowing the customer to have the flexibility on paying according to the usage. So this is why I think this is important, because to a lot of the banks or governments, that to them they have seasonal, right? So early of the years, or end of the years, you have this shoppings or festivals or even on a month end perspective, you have salary processings, and all this has become patterns, in terms of the consumptions, and they just want to pay, rather than like I pay you a one-off fees, per month or whatnot. So they want to look at the utilization itself. That how can I pay? And this is the parts that Infomina come in to also help our customers. That we call it the mainframe consumption licensing model, where it works very, very well. To a lot of our customers to look into it. Hey, this is a lot more makes sense in business model for our customer, especially processing of all the data, all the incoming transactions. Is sometimes you just cannot predict. You don't know when it's going to have another possible, like, I don't know, we talk about COVID, but we don't know what is going to come against, that once again, the processing will be required in a very short time.
All right. So the follow-up question, right, is Infomina an IBM partner?
Yes, we are IBM partner.
All right. I guess that's from me for now. Sachi, do you have any question?
Yeah, so there's actually a couple more questions that are a bit more, I guess, big picture. And I think this is an interesting question also from Rondi. So just continuing the discussion that we're having on banks and the trends in the mainframe space. So the question is basically, is it true that banks are moving off mainframes? And is this an opportunity or a threat for you?
Yeah. Okay. So some of the banks are doing that initiative and taking that initiative. Definitely, I think this is something that most of the customer or most of the people who want to do, because I think as it goes, there's a lot of opportunity and there's a lot of things, that when I talk about, that what are the new avenue and new channels that when you want to do. So typically, for anyone, that the two things that you want to do is that who will be the technology provider. One is that no matter how, you want to find the technology provider that will be able to bring you through and to achieve that particular business outcome. So sometimes you can go to those companies that you mentioned just now to add on to that part. But no matter how you offload some of this processing, let's say that that maybe today I want to take my credit card payment of a certain my debits off to another platform. Okay, but no matter how you do, you still have to go back to the mainstream of what the customer is doing, because the mainstream of the customer is that the whole customer database is still on the mainframe itself. So by adding on to all this, it's not exactly that it becoming that you're taking away. You're just trying to let's not stress out our capacity on the mainframe itself. That there are some other alternative. Whichever one that will give us faster way to reach out to the market. To add on to the revenue is what the customer is looking at. But whichever way that you go, whether you continue to have more workload in a mainframe, okay, or you are creating another subset outside of mainframe, but you still have to interact back to mainframe. And from a mainframe point of view, we will still have to service that particular point. Okay, and that part of the that what and how to service This is where again Infomina being a value added partners, to that we have the business domain expertise, to support our customer, so that we can help them whether they want to have that particular service, continue to inside the mainframe or outside the mainframe, whichever way the interactions, however way, it will still go back to the mainframe itself to process, and we can help them on that part as well.
Okay, got it. I think this next question from David Poe is also a very interesting question. So let me understand it. So do your customers engage these resources direct? Sorry, is this other question first? Sorry. So this question comes first. This is the context. So David is saying, if I understand your business model correctly, Infomina does not own the hardware, but provides the engineers or specialists to deploy the projects and the equipment. So the question is, do your customers engage these resources directly from your principal suppliers, or could you share the industry practices?
Sure, thanks. Yeah, we do not own majority part of the hardware and the software. Most of this we work together with partners. I think we mentioned just now, from IBM, from Broadcom software, from VMware, and all that. Yes, the customer can actually engage the resources, directly from our principal supplier, but it is also that our principal supplier usually will, when they send us up, they will also expect us to be their services arm, okay, for these customers. We will hope that that we will continue, because most of our principals, that they want to stay and become the R&D and also the technology players in the back ends, and they want to have the local partner, local companies, that will be able to service the customers directly, and just like now I mentioned this, Asia, uniquely Asians, so different cultures, we cannot be expecting them to put in a lot of OPEX, into this of the country. So it will make more sense, for the local company. But when it comes to local company, when each of the company will start to build their own, there will be a lot of redundant resources, and also redundant of you can't have like one particular outfit, because the market is just not big enough. You want to enlarge it, into the entire Asia footprint. That make Infomina to become a very better positions, that way most of our resources coming from Malaysia, okay, and we will continue to grow, our staff and our strengths, in each of these countries. But we will not have like another 100 people, in Thailand, or another 100 people in Philippines. We want to keep that in the better ways, where Malaysia will become the HQs, of the entire support center, where the sales and certain technical funds, will sit, in each of these countries, and we will draw our expertise from here to support our customers, in this region. And that also will actually bring a better economy sense, to our customer, and also a better fees, to our customer, because you won't be asking them to fly all the way, from wherever they are, and then they charge them, and this limited of resources, go around. So this is why that Infomina, again, in a better position, to offer that kind of services. And SP mentioned just now, about the center of excellence, that one of the things that we should add on also is that the center of excellence is not only to train up new resources for us to support a customer, but it is also a place where we train our customer, their own staff, to accreditate them, to give them the certifications, to even give them the exposure. And if we can come from this, on a different countries, we can also bring the same case studies, the same experience that we have learned from one country, to another one. And all of our CIO and CTOs that we talk to, and they constantly want to know how the peer are doing, constantly want to know, how the other company are doing, although they don't tell, But this is something that that we can actually share that kind of knowledge, without jeopardizing, any of the sensitivity information.
Okay, got it. I think just shifting gears a bit, because you've mentioned earlier about how you want to use Malaysia as kind of like a hub for the entire region. And I remember just preparing for the session, your financials. In 2019, you were a Malaysia-only business, and then today you are deriving a significant amount of your revenue from markets like Thailand, and I think it's Philippines, the other market. And then just linking it back to this question from Dimitri also, clearly he's done his homework on the business. So he read about the partnership with Broadcom, and he's asking whether you could share a little bit about, what is the benefits of being a tier one partner with Broadcom, and how do you play in the supply chain? And a follow-up question of, is this the driver of your revenue growth, especially in other markets?
Okay, thanks. I think that go back to a little bit of the histories, how Infomina started. So I think you mentioned this out in 2019 we started in our expansions. But back before that, we were merely just in Malaysia, and for Malaysia we have grown into a much more better maturity, where in even earlier years, okay, we are only servicing just mainframe in Malaysia. And during that time, many years ago, that everything is just around the Broadcom software, the mainframes. Then slowly the customers see us and see our presence and see our skill sets, and they started to ask us to look into a much more comprehensive supporting them, rather than just focusing on the Broadcom software in Malaysia. So then that's where that we have the turnkey projects, that the customer say that, hey, why don't you take up my entire processing centers, for my mainframe, So we not just only have the Broadcom mainframe software, but also the IBM. Oh, can you also do the support? Can you also do the application development? Can you also help us on the help desk center? Can you also help us on the disaster recovery? Can you also help us on the security centers, for the entire not just the mainframe itself, but it's everything, surrounding it, and up to the entire food chain of what has been presented as well. So that is what we have been doing before 2019 in Malaysia, starting from Broadcom mainframe software, expanding that, slowly, and become a much more mature, and of course Malaysia become the biggest revenues, for everything. And then to take the same things of what we have been doing in Malaysia, starting from the mainframe software, and also we start to wrap around that. We also, works very well, with ours, with, for example, in this case, Broadcom, and say, hey, you done so well in Malaysia. Why didn't you do it in other countries as well? This is where we started to expand that, into other countries, where they granted us the tier one distributorships and also partnerships, for direct value added. This is where we go into that, and hence, that 2019 we have just started that journey in the expansion. Unfortunately, the COVID, didn't really help us, that we want to go there, and then we just got shot back, and then we can only do it very remotely in a very slow pace, that's why that we, but still give us we're very blessed that we still give us a very good revenue runs, for the past 3 years, what I mentioned just now, 60, 80, hundreds, and become 200 million in the 3 years. But last 1 year, ever since that we can travel, I mentioned this before, that we finally see the returns, and we that will actually bring us a lot more. So this is where we play in terms of the food chain. I also talk about that we want to see Philippines, Thailand, Singapore, or even for the North Asia, especially the North Asia, Hong Kong, Taiwan, and China, plus Indonesia, we have not really put a lot of effort. We only spent the last 1 year, to start with that. Indonesia will tend to need a little bit more different way of working in it. So this will be the new place that we will be going, and we want to grow each of these country, as big and also as comprehensive and also as mature like Malaysia. Now, not just Broadcom software itself, but eventually we want to have each country to be able to wrap around whatever that we have and make that become more and more turnkey projects out of it. And that will be our in our business strategies, that we will be expanding that, and it is a lot more, much more bigger markets, that we are looking at, and confidently, I think we've done that in Malaysia, and we should be able to do that, with our unique positions, that the only ones in these regions, that we should be able to do that, for each of these countries.
Okay, got it. Shafiq, anything from you, Shafiq?
Yep. Previously, you mentioned that when you're explaining about the subscription model or not, right? You mentioned that you also provide software services. So there's a two questions that related to that I would like you to touch, right? So Elaine, you asked that your company does a lot of AI, blockchain, IoT, big data, machine learnings, and etc. Where do you put your big bet and what solution the company building on top of blockchain, right? And the second question that I think more also related to the prior question is cybersecurity emerging as a big issue. So do Infomina also providing these solutions, right?
Okay. Maybe you want to go back to the other
First,
questions so that I can
Alright.
answer it one at a
Last
time.
question. Yes.
okay.
Okay. The question is whether company do AI blockchain. Yes, yes, we done. In fact, we have just deployed one of the AI components, for one of our customers in Malaysia, where we did the artificial intelligence matchings and also the learning models for the real life situations. This is related to one of the customers. It's a government contract. It's the government customers. I am unable to disclose the name of the customers. I'll just let you know what business they are in. These customers actually basically to have some kind of like new revenue streams, that they are looking at. And the real revenue streams that they're looking at is basically they are in the business of collecting taxes. Okay, they are in the business of collecting custom taxes, for any importing goods, coming from overseas. What they want to do is basically to look into the images, that scan through all the container that's coming through, into the ports in Malaysia. So then they want to automate the entire process, where they will be able to scan through all these images, and in the same time pull the mainframe data, back in the HQ, and try to compare the two set of data, and see and guess, that first, not just the quantity of it, so whether it match, but also whatever that you declare, and it matches what you have inside there. Then the person in charge, the officers that is actually working on that, they don't have to base on their gut feel of looking at the container. Do you have some things that you undeclare or non-declare or what sort not, but they want to leave it to the system itself to be able to perform the kind of artificial intelligence, by learning whatever that declares, pulling from the mainframe, whatever that you are scanning. And yeah, it is coming from a mainframe data that we are pulling it out, and then how do we match that part, by learning that. It ended up, that we are giving the customer a full turnkey project, where not just that we are pulling the data, out, we will also have to go to the extent of implementing the entire project by having the whole X-ray scanner for the customer. And in order for us to implement the entire X-ray scanner for our customers, we will also have to engage into the services of even down to the civil engineering, mechanicals, building the entire platform, the data center, the operating room, the driveway, the traffic lights, and study into the domain of how the customer works in their business, of understanding how to redirect all the SOP. That last time it used to be eyeballing the whole thing. You could have 5 steps, in order for you to perform that particular matching. Now that we are speeding that up, by changing the whole thing, is that all you need is just one AI model, who help you to match it back. If something on, it's supposed to give you some kind of alerts, and the officer will just walk in and say, hey, please open up this one or open up that one. That actually helps our customers, to collect millions or hundreds of millions additional revenues, from that AI outcome. But that is just one of the typical real life AI in the actual one. So some of this data, I believe that is also popping up, to all the blockchains, but that's not something that we are doing, for the customer. All right. So can you prove it? There's the other questions
Yeah.
they have.
The other question is about cybersecurity solution.
Okay, cybersecurity, definitely I think is one of those issues that I think we have the turnkey projects that usually, if I take back to some of the customers that you mentioned this time, okay, for any turnkey projects, right, there will always be elements of security. Okay, that security can come from a very specific, back into the in-house of whatever projects that we implement. We got to make sure that all elements must be secure. So we have a standard parameters and everything so to have that to be implemented as part and parcel of the entire turnkey project. But when it comes to the cybersecurity, that will also go into a different set of skill set and also different set of requirement. Sometimes we ourselves will engage a third party, because if we are the ones who's going to do the parts, for the customers, then it may not make sense. So we may engage, a third party, a cybersecurity player. We don't actually go and talk to the customer and say that we will only sell. We will also want to come in, to sell you the cybersecurity, because that is not what Infomina want to drive. That we want to drive everything that is coming from the back end and whatever that is running on the mainframe. And we want to see how can we, like I just said, how can I take the data, match it, so that you can do additional revenue. We want to match it and find new avenue. And when you do all these things, the whole new business process that we are creating, and that will require the cybersecurity protections, and that's where that we will get another partner or other vendors to come and support us with that in the same turnkey projects.
All right, thank you. So Sachi, do you have any other question?
So let's do a couple of quick ones. There's this question from Elaine, whether Silver Lake, which is I think a player that a lot of people are familiar with in Malaysia in this general type of space, are they your competitor? Or do you see them as?
No, we don't see them as a competitor, but I don't know whether they see us as a competitor. I can't say for sure. But I think they are typically much more to the banking app, right? Most of the customers know that if they have the Silver Lakes, installed, it is just one of the applications that we are supporting. That whatever they go around, and wrapping around, that will come from us.
Okay, understand. There is also, where is it, this question? So there's also this question from coming in from Jaming. So Vitescape, which is a in-house developed app, if I understand correctly, and she makes the point that there are a few other similar apps out there, but how do you plan to grow it, and will it be a standalone offering? And I will also think, like, what's the business model for it? Yeah.
Okay, good. First thing first, I think Vitescape is we just launched it in 2020, and it's still in a very stage of like expanding. One of the very important killer apps, is that we want our customers to be able to choose. No, just think of Vitescape is one of your chat platform, right? I mean, all of us will have their own chat app, right?
Yeah.
Whatever the chat app, I think you and I think we all depends on that. But the chat apps in the common reality is that all chat apps are running on cloud. That means that your data, right, whatever you put inside the chats, which we all depends on it very much. Without the chats, probably if I ask you to uninstall one of them, you probably feel like I cannot communicate to anyone, right? But the key is that the data are actually on cloud, and they are not with you. They are somewhere, owned by somewhere. And whatever that chat app that is developed by whichever company, which I don't want to mention who they are, that they will always have that access to your data, whether you like it or not. Right? Vitescape is actually built in that model where we want to have our customers, that if you install the chat apps or this particular collapse, platforms, from Vitescape, we want you to have the choice eventually that you can also use our cloud server to host all the chats, data, and whatever collaboration data, but you can also choose your own server in any of your data service provider, or even your own private server back in for enterprise, back in your own data center. So you can have that particular chats and everything stored in your place, and your KPI, your key, your encryption key, everything owned by you. And that is the whole initiative of like, if I have that particular chat apps, you have a particular chat apps, I store the data, I know where they are, I can anytime, to protect it, same goes to you, but yet we can still talk to each other. And another point, that we also always emphasize on owning and taking up, your own data, in your own house, is also going to, we want to be able to provide that that community and also the marketplace services. Imagine is that if you have this chat app, each of the chat apps will be able to connect to your own server, and your own server you can do all your own services. You can, let's say if it's a profitable organizations who have their own chat app, okay, they want to put all their services of e-leave system, they want to put their own services of HR system, they want to put their own of intranet services, everything inside there. But in the same time, the same person using the same chat apps, by signing up to that server, knowing all their own their colleagues and everyone's online and talking to each other, but they can also toggle around a different server and sign on in the same time to another server. That server can be maybe not another company, maybe it could be a non-profit organizations, maybe a tuition center, a school, or a university, associations, and that particular association also, or whoever that organization, can actually have their own service. So as Nan said, when they toggle between the two community or two organization server, they will access to different kind of services coming from that particular organization. So this is the ideal set of YD space, where we're going to create the kind of different spaces, for our people. Now, if you take and try to imagine that, let's say that if you use one of your popular app, W app, okay, and your W app will be able to sign on to your own internal server. Then you can do whatever internal server offline. You can apply your leave. You can do everything there. In the same time, you can also have a W app to sign on to another one, but both will work seamlessly together without any worry. And then the data is owned by the respective organizations. So this is what there are no many other similar apps. In fact, we have done that part, that none app available in the world yet will go into that manner.
Okay, understand. So the pitch is probably to a lot of the more privacy and security oriented companies, which happen to be your clients, like the FIs and the government players.
Exactly.
Understand.
Correct.
Okay. There is maybe we do two more. There's actually two more questions I wanted to pick out. This question from Mark is pretty interesting, because the way the business works is you don't own the hardware, you rely on your suppliers to provide it to you. So the question is, have you experienced or still experience any hardware supply chain issues that may impair the ability to realize the order book? And I guess the context here is also in light of the supply chain issues over the past few years, whether that has impacted you.
I think we had that during the COVID time, definitely. Not just the we cannot travel kind of problem, but we also have the hardware supply issues, that we are facing. Today, I think that situation is actually improving. It's better. It's not to say that the supply chain problems, for some of this hardware are not there. Okay, but we have learned to actually to work with different way of doing it. Some customers we are working with, that we know that which particular components, of the hardware, that may have the kind of problem. So typically, we work with a customer and preempt them. But we won't be slowing down, in waiting for that. So normally we will just like build it into a contract and say that I will get another equivalent model and capacity for you as a temporary use. This is where that we can actually get our hands on, to all those parts first. So as when the new the one that they ordered, arrive, then we will do the swap, for that. Typically, this is how I think we try not to let that slow down. Okay, and we will try to continue to realize that in order, especially supplying, all this one is also part of the important delivery milestone for our turnkey project as well.
Okay, got it. Let me cover this. And there was one more question that I wanted to cover, which is, given the sentiment around a global recession coming soon, the question is basically whether you guys are going to be able to write that out well, because I think my understanding, and probably the understanding of the audience, is also the business is quite stable because it's a very vital necessity, right?
Yep. Yeah. Our customers are directly from all those banks and the government. I hope the banks and the government don't go bankrupt themselves. That's for sure. But
Then we'll have a different set of problems.
that's a different kind of problems, you know. Well, we can't say that what will happen during the recession. So, but what we see is that we thought that the COVID, you know, is going to be a problem, you know. But the COVID is actually just giving us a wake-up call, you know, that a lot of things, you know, when they go online, it introduce, you know, more capacity demand. In the last, I think, many years, you know, that we see the customers, you know, that usually they will do the upgrades, you know, in 3 to 5 years, only they do one round of upgrade cycle, you know, for big banks or for governments. But because of the COVID, you know, and we see that the customers are actually, you know, within 2 years or less than 3 years, they will be already one round or sometimes 2 rounds of upgrades, you know. That shows that the demands, you know, coming from the public is always there. And then we also see that there's a lot of customers are moving into a very transformation manners, you know, that people no longer think conventionally. Business no longer think conventionally, you know. You know, it's just like what are the customers that we walk into, you know, in a banks and also a telco in Thailand, is that we walk into their outlets, you know, their service shops. You know. We don't feel like we are walking into a bank or a telco. We feel like we are walking into a cafe. Then we were like, go into the cafe and then you just like someone just come and serve you a drink, you know, and then he will hand you up, you know, a menu. And that menu will ask, you know, that what kind of bank services or telco services that you want to get from that. And apparently it is some kind of like a new way of avenues, you know, for one of the banks in the regions, you know, that tying up, you know, with some of the cafe runner or some of the logistics, you know, companies, you know, to offer new experience of this kind of revenue. And in order for you to work with them, you know, that you know you have to open up a lot of APIs, you know, and eventually all these data and all this new way of running the business, you know, they got to have their own business models that eventually these people will be tapping on as well. Then it will go back to the back ends, you know, where again, you know, where we come from, so how can we get the right set of data and the right way of business process, you know, out to this new business. So it's more like a pull and also a push factors, you know, in both end actually. So I wouldn't say that the recession will not hurt, you know, because I'm not an expert in that, you know. But so far what we are seeing is that, you know, that we are dealing with a lot of mission critical environments, you know, the bank database, you know, the government database, you know. So this is where we are coming from, and we believe that we should be able to continue to service them, you know, in no matter whatever manners, you know, in the economy.
I think
Okay.
if I were may add, I think one of the key word that I use is essential services.
Yeah,
You will realize that a lot of our customers and a lot of the things that we are doing are really providing essential services to the basic of a citizen or any consumer in the market. Then maybe just to add to Chee Meng statement earlier, just imagine 3 years ago how frequent you do online shopping as compared to today, how frequent you order a Grab food, something from Shopee and all these things. It probably double, triples as compared to before COVID. And the number of transactions that is going back to the back end to do all the clearance and all the processing has just grown tremendously in the last few years. The e-commerce, the digital economy in the entire region, not just the country, you know, and that actually I would say that really help us to grow in terms of our baseline of business and also to grow in our turnkey, which we provide transformation to customers to help them to get engaged into all these e-commerce, digital economy, mobile apps, and so on.
Okay, perfect. Understand very
we,
clearly.
we hope that I think people are more resilient in a way, you know, that if it's in the recession, probably people will be tidying up their pockets and their belts, you know, to all the spending. But it will be time for businesses, you know, outside there to help coming up new idea of how can we help you to tighten up more by comparison, more places for them to shop, for example, you know. So it will still continue to be more demands, you know, to the back end, I believe.
Understand. Okay, sounds good. I think, Mr. Yee, if anything, maybe this question from Mr. Wong actually sets you up very nicely to do a closing remark and to close out the session. I'm very mindful that we've already crossed 10:30, so maybe Mr. Wong, if you've got, sorry, Mr. Yee, if you've got any closing remarks, please go ahead.
Okay, in the next 2 to 5 years, I think 10 years is a bit too far to say that, you know. In the short terms, I think 1 to 2 years time, you know, that the first things that we have to do is to increase our team in these respective regions. That will include Thailand, Philippines, Singapore, and then we will have a good sales teams that's running for us. You know, we have a couple of sales folks, you know, in these countries already, but we want to expand that teams, you know, so that it will continue to help us to look into not just the current business that are coming in. There will be a lot more turnkeys, you know, which soon, you know, that we're seeing some sort of coming in and realizing that benefit. We are also looking into in the next 1 2 years time, you know, that to grow ourselves into Indonesia and China. This will be the two markets that we have not really like, spent enough time. Indonesia we have just started, you know, last year, and China will be planned for us to really look into next year. That of course, given the condition is that the China COVID situations will get improved, and also we can travel into those two countries. You know, we believe we have a very large, huge mainframe footprints. You know, there'll be a lot more services that we can actually provide over there, and we all know Malaysian here. We have this good quality. You know, many of us, you know, can speak multiple languages. You know, and also whenever that we go to these countries, you know, somehow or other, most of these countries will like Malaysian when we tell them and say that. You know, I think that gave us a very good advantage, you know, over that. You know, and then while we look into the next 1 2 years, you know, when it comes to the profits and also the revenue, put aside Indonesia and China, those are the two big population monster we are talking about. You know, so we're not going to speculate. You know, but of course, two different cultures, you know, will require two different kind of attentions, you know, and different kind of challenges that is going to come, you know, ahead of us. But we already faced the kind of challenges during the COVID times, you know, in moving to Thailand and Philippines, you know, in that kind of manners. I think we should be able to handle it, SP. That shouldn't be a problem to us. So not to project any numbers from these two countries, but the nearer neighbors, you know, like Thailand, Philippines, you know, the thing that should be our very early targets, you know, to bring them to be as big as Malaysia, you know. So if you want to, you know, do the same, like, you know, whatever that we're doing this year, that two country and also together with Singapore, you know, it should give us same amounts of revenue. It may not happen in a year time, you know, but in 2 to 5 years time, you know, with the right team, the right number of people, and also the right approach that whatever that we are doing, okay, we should be able to grow much bigger than what we are doing today. Okay, not in a single digits, definitely in a double digits way. So then, in terms of the profits, you know, that because of the way that we centralize, you know, the most of the key people, you know, in Malaysia, you know, and then that should help us, you know, in optimizing the OPEX and also tapping, you know, into local regions, you know, where only elements of all those sales and technical pre-sales, you know, to help us to run those regional country offices. So that should help us, you know, in our OPEX, right? And also should help us, you know, in our eventually the profits, you know, that we are looking at. So apart from there, it's also I think nobody asks us, you know, about the FX. Nobody asks us about the foreign currency. You know, US dollar is so high. You know, ringgit is now dropping. Well, I think a couple of months ago, you know, US dollar is climbing. If in fact now it's still kind of high. You know, there. It doesn't really not to say it won't hurt, you know, but to us, I think it's not really big problems because I think we had some mitigations steps, you know, built into it. Okay, where most of the countries, you know, that we are signing up the contracts, we want that to be on a US dollar contract. So even though it's a US dollar contract, because we are paying our suppliers, from US, so we are paying them in US dollars as well. So the local currency that we are collecting is still based on a US dollar contract. So even if they are signing up a 3 years, 5 years contract with us, okay, they will be based on the US dollar spelled out, in the contract, but they can settle it in local currency at that time of exchange. So then, to us, that mitigates, the risk of that. But that doesn't stop us, from whatever the process that we raise here, the working cap that we put. If you look at the perspectives of the large amount of the working caps that we have, it's actually to help us to realize the order book. Now, 400 over millions in the order book is a very good cushion. Those are confirmed contracts that we have to quickly get it in. The faster that we get it in, but there are certain part of it that we cannot speed up because they are all time sensitive, that we go by the maintenance contract. You sign a 3 years contract with me, I cannot be squeezing them into 1 year. So we still have to service them for the next 3 years. But we also see a lot of good growth, that before the end of the 3 years, before we even go and renew them for the following 3 years, sometimes we get a request of that why don't you come and renew with us, because there tends to be some new projects coming up, the turnkey project, or even the capacity upgrade on the second year. Then from there, we also will work with the customers, on replenishing, that, before you end your third year, before you even come to your third year, we are actually wrapping around, another new contract with the customer by adding on some new projects, by adding on some new licenses, and then that will actually give us like an overlap, in terms of before you end, you pay us extra, and then you extend the entire contract for another 3 more years. And we are seeing that coming in. Like I mentioned just now, last time we talked about 3 years and above, we see the people, the customers, upgrade. Now we are seeing them, upgrading this, even in less than 3 years. So that is some things that I think in the many not long to come, that you'll be hearing more, news from Infomina, all the good news is coming about.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Yee and SP. I think it's been, we've crossed the 1 hour 45-minute mark. So thank you so much for taking the time, especially at this hour, to speak to the audience, the viewers. Also very mindful that it's been a hectic month or so for you. You guys just finished the IPO, and like I was saying at the start of the session, you guys have had a fantastic performance so far. So I congratulate you and everyone at the team. And I think without further ado, let's wrap up. I think for the audience, we will make the presentation slides available on Stockbit. So if you're interested to understand a bit more about the business and to just go through the material on your own time, we'll put it up there tomorrow. And maybe just as a public service announcement on behalf of Stockbit, we've actually officially launched our Malaysian website and iOS and Android apps. So please go check it out. We've just inserted the links in the comments. And we look forward to continuing to be able to serve the community in Malaysia when it comes to connecting retail investors with public companies. And I think without any further ado, good night, everyone, and thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Stoppy. Thank you,
Thank you.
Sachi. Thank you.
Cool. Thank you.
Thank you.